Hello and welcome to episode 2 of the self-love series. If you want a quick introduction to what the series is about, check out the first episode, the first few minutes of that episode. That's when we talked about the common misconceptions about self-love, or myths. I'm not sure how I titled it. Anyway, today we're going to talk about self-love, what it means to actually love yourself. Okay, here is what I have learned, and I'm gonna tell you the energetic / spiritual perspective on this. I'm not gonna tell you any other perspectives on it. Sorry about the cars. It's Sunday noonish. People are leaving church and they get very, agitated. Kind of ironic. Okay. What it means to actually love yourself is, from the spiritual perspective, is to be in complete alignment with your true self. So if you, how do I explain this? If you picture your current avatar, your physical self, as a projection of your true self, right? Kind of like if you were sending, cameras down to the Titanic, and you're up here and you send a little thingy with a camera down there, the further that camera gets away from you, the worse the signal will be. And I think that's how it works in the real life. But okay, in the spiritual life, in the spiritual sense, I will work out my analogies, okay? Someday I'll be able to explain this better. For now, this is what I got. So basically, as the capsule gets further away from origin, from where your true self is, the signal starts getting worse, and the capsule starts to suffer under the pressure. For it to be a nice, healthy capsule with a well-working signal, I would have to stay within range and stay aligned. So, yes. Does that make any sense? So basically, to not love yourself means not only you falling out of alignment, you're kind of really far away from your true self. So like we're out of range. And that means that it's more difficult to hear messages from your true self, from your intuition. This is when you see people that have a really hard time getting in touch with that intuitive voice, and they make decisions that are very self-destructive, but they don't know how to stop either. So it means to be in alignment. Some of the other things that it means, as it's perceived from our physical perspective, is it means to stand up for your boundaries. Boundaries are it's one of the highest teachings out there. It's gonna sound, it may sound kind of basic, right? And but it's not just a mental health thing. It is a massive topic to be able to stand up for your boundaries, to be able to be in tune with yourself enough to know what is a boundary, and then also take action on that and defend it. It's that's how you protect your essence, your true self. And it's funny because I have found that most symptoms, if not all of them, I don't want to say all of them, it feels like too much of a generalization, but it's always been about some kind of boundary being violated on some level. It can be emotional or mental or physical, it doesn't matter. It's always a case of having a leaky boundary somewhere. Yeah, I made a video on boundaries, by the way, if you want to check that out. That's from way back when, season 1. But it's still good. I watched it sometime after releasing it, and it was funny because I was watching myself as a separate person for myself, and I was like, wow, those are really good tips. So there you have my not so humble brag for the day. It also means to become an adult. this is not necessary. I mean, there are people out there that are not gonna go down the self-development route and reparent their inner child and really become an adult. But you know, to be completely aligned with your true self, you might need to a lot of the times. Another thing that it means is to embrace darker aspects of yourself that other people in society are not okay with. So things that are more taboo, that are more rejected by society, you may need to be okay with talking about things that are not okay to talk about. And it also means to keep your relationships trimmed, because the more you love yourself, the less you're willing or able to put up with bullshit and boundary violations. And it's you know, it's quite a task to not just keep your relationships trimmed, let go of the ones that are toxic, but also like to even try to make a relationship work when there cannot be any resolution, where either one of the parties doesn't want a resolution, or there's just no understanding happening, and that can be because one of the parties does not want a resolution, or both of them. And also compatibility, you know, you may just not be compatible anymore. And the trend as a social species is, you know, you want to keep the relationships that you have right now and that you've had for a longer time. And sometimes that's not the self-loving thing to do. It's gonna drag you down. It's gonna bring down your frequency or vibration, whatever you want to call it. Ultimately, your feeling state is gonna stay in a lower, more negative feeling, emotional neighborhood. Another thing that I want to touch on is that to love yourself doesn't mean that you're gonna pick up some technique or some tip and just apply it for yourself and bam, that's automatically self-loving. Not necessarily. What it really means is to have an internal agreement with yourself where you have listened to your actual need and now you're acting upon that need, trying to meet it in the best way that you know how. So it's something, this can make teaching self-love very tricky, because someone can tell you, well, you know, go get a massage. That's a self-loving thing to do. Well, yeah, maybe, but maybe not. You know, it's like, it depends on the person, and it also depends on the moment in time that you're telling them that. Maybe right now it is self-loving to you, but at some other point it's not. For example, if someone feels triggered by physical touch, you know, getting a massage, it's pretty much the worst idea for them, even though it's generally a self-loving and relaxing thing to do for other people. Same thing with food recommendations, with lifestyle recommendations, any kind of recommendation that comes your way. It doesn't mean that it's going to be the right thing for you. You always have to decide for yourself. You always have to be asking yourself questions to determine whether it is a self-loving thing to do, and always be personalizing it. So it really means, in that sense, you really have to be an adult to determine what is the self-loving thing for you to do. Because if you're coming from the child perspective, wanting somebody else to tell you what to do, that's a rabbit hole to go down on. And it can be a very painful one. Lastly, I want to share with you 3 benefits that come as a result of loving yourself. I think hopefully this will balance the misconceptions about self-love, where I also talked about some of the struggles. The number 1 benefit is that you're going to have more peace than you'll know what to do with. And it's like an inner peace. It's not something that can be shaken up by external events. Sure, on the external, on the surface level, you might feel, you know, stressed out. You might be going through even like depressive states, and you know, shit happens. Life is gonna happen, and it'll affect you. you're not expected to not be affected by anything, because to not be affected by anything, you would have to be dead. So shit happens, and yet internally there's this sense of like inner peace that just cannot be disturbed, and it grows. As you practice deep self-loving practices, it keeps growing and growing and growing. And so it's like, the end of the world can come and I'm fine. That's just fine. Like, this pandemic can come and kill a bunch of people, and there's this inner sense that it's the inner peace that tells me that's fine. Externally, I'm sad that these things are happening, but internally, it's like, it's something that I feel like the word inner peace is not enough to describe it with. Another one of the benefits is that you speed up enlightenment and growth. And the reason is because the more that you choose the self-loving thing to do, the more that you're going to be like passing obstacles. You're gonna, like, if an obstacle comes your way and you just do the self-loving thing, like that action, it's kind of like taking a shortcut to enlightenment, because you're not going to be distracted by trying to bring down the obstacle. You're just going to go right by it. Does that make any sense? There are also other reasons why it does speed up enlightenment and growth. But I'm going to touch on that on a different video because it's too much for this one. Another benefit, and this is kind of for worse and for better and for worse, is that your entire life changes. And sometimes, depending on how decisive you're being about the decisions, about taking action on the self-loving thing, right? So once you get the answer of what's the self-loving thing to do, if you're taking action on every one of those messages, your life is going to change dramatically and very, very fast. It's almost to a scary degree. So it really depends on the person, like, also to determine how fast they want to go with their self-love journey, because it can change a lot of things, and it can actually be, I would consider it to be more on the risky / dangerous side, because sometimes, for example, like, if you wake up in the morning and you get the message, I don't want to go to work, and you're asking yourself, what's the self-loving thing to do here? Well, quit your job. Well, yeah, okay, great, but like, if you go immediately and quit your job, there are consequences for that, very serious consequences sometimes. The answer may take more planning, more strategizing, and preparing for the next stage. And in those cases, the self-loving thing to do in that moment may be more about, yes, okay, I hear you, I'm gonna set that up, I'm gonna get that going. In the meantime, just know that I hear you, and even though I'm doing this, I'm gonna go to my job that I don't like, just know that I'm here for you, and I'm not gonna abandon you. We are working on a solution. So I ran out of space on my little card. I'm gonna get a new card so that I have enough space to shoot proper videos. But that was the end of my point. If you like this video, please give it a like and share and subscribe and hit the bell, because I don't have an actual upload schedule. So if you want to be notified whenever a video comes up, you really need to hit the bell, and we'll both be hoping that the gods of the algorithm will bless us and actually let you know that there is a new video. If you have any questions, please send them to the email that I have below, and if you want them, especially if you want them answered in video format, because I love getting your questions. They allow me to go into more depth into things that I'm not, blind spots that I'm not considering when it comes to understanding the topic. And yeah. Okay, I'll see you next time. Take care. Mwah.